Good evening and welcome to the Board of Commissioners regular workshop. Today is Wednesday, August the 28th, 2024. It is 6 p.m. We call the meeting to order. City Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Brooks,
Here.
Vice Mayor Caglarini,
Here.
Commissioner Kerr,
Here.
Commissioner McGinn,
Here.
Commissioner Gabai,
Here.
all are present.
With no public in attendance, we will move on to our first agenda item from the Fire Department, presentation to Lieutenant Andrew Childers.
Mayor Commission, thank you for a few minutes of your time tonight. This one's a little tough for us, but I think we'll get through it. We'll adapt and overcome like we always do. A little background. Lieutenant Childers has been with Madeira Beach Fire Department since 2012. Him and I were actually hired together, and we have done a lot here at the fire department, but Lieutenant Childers has done much more. Madeira Beach Fire Department wasn't always the department you see before you. It was used as a stepping stone to get somewhere else, and honestly, I'm guilty of it. I left here, I went to St. Petersburg, and luckily I was fortunate enough to be hired back. But Andy had a vision of a better department, and he stuck it out through the rough times to get where we are today. I won't go over all the accolades, ideas, policies that are in place now because of him. Since I became fire chief, Lieutenant Childers has been my go-to. When the previous mayor and city manager came to me stating they wanted me to step up, I was talking with Andy in the kitchen, and he said, as long as you keep the best interest of the fire department and the firefighters number one, you're going to be fine, and I got your back. I have never forgotten that. I rarely did anything without a conversation with Lieutenant Childers. They always say, leave a place better than you found it, and I believe he has accomplished that. With that, we all wish you, Sarah, Everly, Willow, and Conrad the best, and nothing but success with your new fire department. Congratulations.
Well, I've never been great at this, honestly. Thank you, honestly. I appreciate all the accolades and the recognition. It's really I'd rather focus on what we built, honestly, than anything else. I couldn't be more proud of what I'm leaving here. Everybody back there, most of them I had a hand in hiring, honestly, and pardon my language, but I told them the day they get hired, all you got to do is give a shit. And the older I get, the more I believe in that and everything in life, but especially in the fire department. You couldn't have a better group of people back there, a group of people that cares more about anything. It's always been about the citizens first and our brothers and sisters in that fire department second. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Oh, yeah.
I'd like to say that I've had the pleasure of spending a fair amount of time with Lieutenant Childers, and our city will have a great loss. He's a great guy. Tons and tons of respect from the firefighters that work with him and alongside of him. So best of luck to you and your family. You'll be missed. So we'll move on. Well, I guess, do we have any public comment? So we'll move on to item B, the ITB number 2407, awning over parking pad storage at the fire station.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commission, again, this is for the covered awning for the asphalt pad that we just built over there. This is for vehicle storage, and through the contract we have with the Department of Forestry for our high water vehicle, it has to be stored undercover. So we're just kind of running out of room, and hence the storage unit over there and the asphalt, and this is part of this is the last part of being able to accomplish a little bit of more covered storage. And this is all through ARPA funds as well.
You received 3 bids?
That's correct. We received 3 bids. The first one was non-responsive. They didn't provide the information we requested. The second one that was chosen, they provided everything. They provided the wind speed for the structure that they would build, the materials that they would use, and the cost. And then the third company, they were extremely high. It was 5 times the amount of the second bid, the middle bid. And so we chose the bid selection committee chose the middle bid.
With Molly Contracting?
Yeah, Murat.
Murat, sorry. Do we have any public comment? Commission, do you have any questions?
Chief, who was on the selection committee? Just got
It was myself and Trish Eaton, my executive administrative assistant.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Was there, Chief, was there a specific specification? It looks like they may have provided more than the bid number 2. I didn't know if there was a specific
The third bid,
plan and spec that they had to meet, but then they,
the ITB stated that it was metal awning for a carport is what the intent of it was. And the third bid, if you look through that, they were almost building a garage. So I believe that's why their number came in so high.
and do they have certifications that the other one didn't? I
Oh,
understand.
yeah. I had a pre-construction meeting with Murat after we told them pending commission approval that they had been awarded the bid. And they came in and he's done plenty of projects. But actually, Murat, I believe, is working with Public Works. Murat Construction? Downstairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have
Comments?
one question, Ms. Mayor.
Please.
So when they bid on this project, was it design-built, or was it a design that they bid on?
No, they provided what they would build for us within the specifications. I told them it had to be 40 feet long, 20 feet wide, and 12 feet high to accommodate the high water vehicle or the brush truck. And those were the specifications they were given to be with those dimensions to provide us a metal awning carport. And I left it up to them to provide present what they felt was appropriate.
All right, it just seems like they probably were bidding on a different design than those 2 companies.
Possibly.
It was apples and oranges, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely, if it was more budget friendly or we had more of a budget to complete this project, it would have been a great building. But unfortunately, it was just a little over the top for what we were looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
One more question. Do we have a timeline on when this would be built?
Yes, so in the meeting, he stated, Mr. Murat himself stated, I explained to him the commission meeting on September 11th, pending any heartburn, it would be approved then, and then from there we can move forward. He said it should take about 60 days after permitting, so maybe 120 days total.
Great. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further? Then we will move on to approval of construction manager at risk for Reddington EMS station. All
All right, good evening again. This is the first step in the construction for the Reddington EMS station that we are the project manager for North Redding Beach, Reddington Shores. We put it out to bid. We had 2 respondents, unfortunately only 2. We had it out to bid for just a little bit over 4 weeks. Biltmore was a chosen one from the selection committee, who included Mayor Queen from North Reddington Beach, myself, Trish Eaton, Ali Lalitz from Public Works, and Robin Gomez. And so this was the construction manager at risk company that was chosen. They have experience working on the coastline, so they are very familiar with the issues that we face along here, as you know, with the current fire station status. The other company, Kingdom, they're Central Florida. They had some decent recommendations from the villages. They've done some fire stations for the villages, but without that coastal education, I guess, or experience, it was hard to go away from Biltmore.
Do we have any public comment? Commission?
I had a quick opportunity to look at our package, and they look like they're a great
Yeah,
fit.
they just built Clearwater Station 46 on the beach, and they also just completed South Pasadena's new fire station as well. And this was a tricky situation because it was Madeira Beach as the project manager. It's Pinellas County money, but it's on North Reddington Beach property. And so I reached out to Attorney Trask, and he said, just follow our procurement process. So that's why this is presented to you all tonight.
Was it a unanimous vote?
It was.
Perfect.
Mayor Queen spoke very highly of them.
Yeah. Yep.
Anything further?
So being a construction manager, what do you think your responsibilities will be?
They've definitely lightened the load for me, as opposed to being the contact for everything. So what they do is we hire them to co-manage the project. I have weekly meetings with them, and then and anything that needs to be changed or this won't work, we need to call an audible here. They would also contact me and run that through me first. But they put the electrical, the fire suppression, plumbing, all of those different trades, they put that out to bid themselves on behalf of us. And their fee is 7% of the total cost.
So would you be managing the construction, or would you be managing the project?
Overall, it would be, the oversight's falling on me.
Okay, so if something goes wrong, I'm just being devil's advocate, who would be responsible?
If anything goes wrong with this, it's going to be Biltmore that's going to be held responsible for this, because essentially the contractors are working for Biltmore. They're being hired by Biltmore, being paid from the county.
Okay, as long as there's no liability, responsibility, because...
No, but our labor attorney, Rob Eschenfelder, went through the contract, and we changed a few things that kind of left the door open with the county's contract, that it wasn't crystal clear, but it could have been spun in a way that maybe we were on the hook if the project was delayed or extended or what have you. And we fixed all that. That contract was also presented to the commission.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, one more question, Chief. With our existing fire station, we've gone through a lot of trouble with, litigation because of structural. Are you feel comfortable with the structural design of this station?
I do. And speaking with them as well, they're in the drawings that we received, there's no less than 100 pilings, and even the construction manager at risk said it's not beneficial to them to not have as much work, but they said that that's even overkill for being on the coast right here. So they're looking at alternatives, and it'll be a little bit of savings as well for that, which is good for the county.
Great. And if there were an issue, I guess as Commissioner Gavahi had mentioned, that would go back to Biltmore. That's all in the contract.
Yeah, we haven't signed a contract yet, and I'd imagine that would probably have to come in front of the commission as well.
Yeah.
But with Attorney Trask and Eschenfelder, we'll be able to hammer out the details and present to you a clean
Perfect.
version.
Thank you so much. Great work.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good. Don't go far.
Last.
Item D is approval of the 2024 Emergency Medical Services ALS First Responder Agreement and FY25 ALS FR budget.
Yes, okay. So this one is a contract with Pinellas County to provide medical services because the county does not provide fire suppression services. So we enter into an agreement with them and it's good for every 2 years. Every 2 years, we renew it. So they decided they wanted to try to mirror the new Sunstar contract, which is 5 years, and extend our contract out. This does not affect the ALSFR budget. The budget will still come to us every year. We can adjust it as needed. This year is a 19.49% increase over last year's budget. And so that's something we'll be able to do as long as we can you're allowed a 3% increase, but as long as you're allowed to justify an increase over 3%, they'll present it to the county commission and they either say yay or nay. And so far we've been fortunate enough for them to agree that the justification is there for a substantial increase. So the budget will still come to the commission every single year. This is just kind of a little bit of housekeeping.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners? Good. Thank you very much,
Yes,
Chief.
ma'am.
The next item is Board of Commissioners Flood Insurance Update Homestead Issue Letter to State. And I believe, weren't you working on this?
Yeah, I'll put my microphone on. This is a draft. I'm open to wordsmithing or ideas on it. I could read the whole thing, but it's here. Basically, I wanted to put out I was tasked to put out a letter that supported my thoughts on the flood mitigation. So basically, I was calling it the Homestead Relief Act. We don't have to call it anything, but that's I was referencing it. Basically, I outlined that the My Safe Florida Home program, that's a statewide program for Florida, is for wind mitigation. It doesn't really address flood mitigation. So I just kind of try to give as much information without going overboard with a letter that we can send to our state representatives. It doesn't have to be one. It can be multiple. I don't know if we want to share this with the other cities along the beach in the Big C. The last storm, you can see inland, flooding's a big issue. You don't have to just be on the coastline. And for people to try to raise their homes or rebuild their homes, and you still have the same density, I don't know why they should be impacted by their property insurances escalating so they can't afford to stay in their homes. So with that and an opportunity to take the maximum increase, decrease it from 3% to 2% of your assessment, your taxable value. I wanted to put this in front of the state to see if we could get some traction to present this and see if we can't get a vote on that. And then at the very bottom, this would help our crisis as far as the home insurance. And I just did a quick Google search, and it's just showing that over the last, since 2014 I went down, Florida is consistently in the top 3 paying the highest insurance premiums across the nation, and 4 out of those 8 years they were number 1. So I'd like to get any input from the board, and once if we're in agreement that we want to do something with this, get it to Linda Cheney and any other of our state representatives to see if we can get some traction, and I would recommend that we do it in with as many people or as many organizations as possible to at least get a discussion going. I don't want to just leave it with one individual representative that may look at this favorably or unfavorably, and for it to die in that way. So I'm open for any input. Be critical, please. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, I don't know if this comes to the next board meeting for any vote, but now's the time for any changes to it, any wordsmithing or any criticism. I'll put it at that.
Do we have any public comment? With no public comment, Commission, any comments?
I appreciate Commissioner Kerr doing all the detailed, hard work on this, and I couldn't find anything that I would change. I think we should go forward and wordsmith the letter and talk and get started. I like something that just gets talked about and talked about. He's finally doing something. Great.
If I were to add something to it, Madeira Beach is probably one city that I know of that the freeboard above FEMA is 4 feet. And most other cities are 2 feet, 1 foot, 3 feet. So with 4 feet of freeboard, I think, the flood rate should be much, much less. So it should somewhat affect the reduction of the, flood cost, insurance cost.
The only comment that I had was, great work, thank you, has the planning department looked at the letter?
I don't know.
Oh, so
I can't speak to that.
I think that it would be, they might have some input or might have some, maybe, I'm not sure. I think that if we had them look at it, it would be great, and then move forward with.
The only hesitancy I would have to that is timing. I would like to get it out for discussion
next meeting.
to the state and to the Big C and to the.
So I think that the way you've written it is, I think it's just fine. I support it. I don't have any, you did the work. You put the work in.
Thank you.
And so the only thing I would be thinking to let them have a one-over, and if they saw any area maybe of improvement for, I don't know, their input from that high level that they sit at, and then bring that back to us at the next meeting and vote on it so that we can move it forward and get it out.
Will they have when's their next meeting scheduled?
So I don't mean the planning commission. I'm sorry.
oh.
I'm sorry. I meant community development. I apologize.
Okay.
I didn't speak that clearly. I meant to let Jenny and Marcy and Andrew and their team maybe do a
Absolutely.
once-over and see where they might, if they would do any changing or massaging of it, and then with their recommendation on top of all the work you've put into preparing the letter.
Absolutely. When I submitted it to Robin, I did copy Marcy and Jen, and
Okay.
And-
Then,
so they've had an opportunity to look at it. I don't know if they've had an opportunity to respond.
Yeah, I did look at it. We haven't discussed it collectively as a team, but I do see some opportunities to clarify a few things that I think will be helpful. And I also have a website that I'll share with you that I think you'll find pretty interesting. It's a dashboard, so it's presented very nicely with pie charts and easy to understand data, so I'll share that with you guys as well. There may be something from that you could plug into the letter as well. But other than that, I agree with everybody. It was very well written, and I see where you're headed, so very good job.
Marcy, do you think that you could do that and get it back to Commissioner Kerr, say within the next week?
Yeah,
And
definitely
then
easy.
you would be able to then put your stamp on it, and then that would come before the commission at our next meeting?
We can, yeah,
Okay.
that's absolutely doable, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Only because you did such a good job, so.
Yeah, you did a good, yeah, it's a lot
Yeah,
of, I
definitely.
had studied it before we got here tonight, so I had gone on the websites. It's very well done.
Definitely, I totally agree with the board, the mayor and the commission here. The Homestead Relief Act, decreasing the maximum taxable property tax value from 3% increase to a 2% 2% increase annually. I definitely agree with that. And also, if we could go over just which I'm not, just more clarification, the 2% maximum property tax increase may require a non-homestead residential and commercial properties to absorb any unrealized taxes
Well, my
from
point,
homestead property.
yeah, my point there, and I can be corrected, well, I can't be corrected by Andrew because he's not here. But my understanding is that the county, with setting their rates, they have a balanced budget as well. So they have their expenses, and they need to set their millage rate based on, or their portion based on their expenses. So if for some reason, well, historically, the residents are not, in Pinellas County, not charged at 3%. That's the max. Historically, it's been somewhere 1 to 2 or whatever. So as property taxes increase, if that millage rate needed to go up, it's still not, there may be more of a burden on the non-homestead properties to absorb that difference.
For the homes.
So I don't see it as a cost to the county. It just may be a different proportion in each category. That's all. That's my intent there. So, you know, I've looked at these things before, and quite sometimes you'll get a fiscal impact study done, and I'm not the expert, but I've read these before where it says, well, there'll be a reduction in the taxes. Well, no, that's not true. It could be a reduction in the homestead portion of those taxes, but not overall. So you're not taking away from any services.
Right.
So,
Thank you. Great job.
thank you.
The next item is PCPAO City of Madeira Beach right-of-way, map information, election candidates, campaign sign placement, and sign codes. I'm not quite sure how this is going to present without Robin here.
I think I might be able to start it. I think this came up with the previous election where in the mayoral competition for that many, or I have to choose my words correctly. One candidate or both or one or the other may have placed their signs in city right-of-ways, and that became a legal issue. And the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department was called, and there was some dispute on where you could actually place signs. So I know the board at that time was directed that you're not allowed to place your signs in the city right-of-way. So that, to me, I don't know if I am the one that spurred this, but I asked, what does that mean to the city manager? So oftentimes as you drive through the neighborhoods, there are signs everywhere. And typically they're not that far from the road, and they're in the city right-of-way. Now, I've never seen the Sheriff's Department have any issue with that. But if it's along Thomas Stewart Causeway or Gulf Boulevard, it seems to have a different level of enforcement. I just asked the question: if we're not allowed to do it in the right of way, you know, how do we know? You know, I may run again, and I may place signs out. How do I know if I'm in violation of the city code? So I think that's where this started. I don't know if we have much more clarification, but Andrew may have something.
So I included a link in the memo to the Pinellas County Property Appraiser website, including their interactive GIS map that shows property lines. So you can, I can just, So, for example, this is our public right-of-way, while this is the private property owner's property. So they can't put the sign in our right-of-way, but they can put the sign on their property. So this would be one option. Sometimes the lines could be maybe a foot or two off. But another option would be if you know the private property owner, they might have a property survey, and that shows where the right-of-way line is too. But this is publicly available and easily accessible, so this would probably be the easiest source to use that's readily available.
You can do public.
Do we have any public comment? Commission?
Perhaps this map with some creative highlighting could be distributed to candidates who have applied and are ready to run, saying, here's very specifically where you can and can't put a sign. Maybe that map would be included with their packet. That might be something that would be very clear, and we use that as a reference, then there's no question.
The challenge, so I did try to make a map similar, because I actually did reach out to the property appraiser and got some of their data. The challenge is trying to print a map large enough to actually to be able to show the right of way, because the thing is, even on 11 by 17, it's very tiny. Madeira Beach isn't that big, but it's still like over a square mile. So trying to show a square mile on a 11 by 17 inch piece of paper, which is like the largest one we could.
Well, let me ask, is it visible on a website?
Yes, this is, yeah, I linked it to the property appraiser website that's.
But that's the one they provide. It doesn't necessarily have highlighted areas where you can't. Is that right? Can you manipulate that in any way?
It's not highlighted, but the lines are clearly on there to
Yeah,
distinguish.
they will show
Yeah.
Bay. So, for example, this is Bayshore. There's also different map layers too, but it shows pretty clear where the lot line is, and where the right of way is, because they have everything labeled. They have the lots labeled. They have the streets labeled. You could actually do measurements. So, like, for example, this right of way says it's 40 feet, so it should be about 40 feet. Yep.
Well, then maybe that link could be emphasized in the packet by the city clerk, saying this is super important. Make sure. I mean, there's other things that are linked that the candidate has to go to. So maybe this could be included in that packet.
I agree. That would be a good idea.
I think ultimately the onus is on the candidate to understand where you can and cannot put a sign. And I would be curious to understand if the city was going to direct a candidate where they could and couldn't specifically put a sign. That seems like it might be really convoluting for us. I'm not going to speak to the neighborhood of how that operates in a neighborhood when political signs are out, but I know that the day before the election, last week, wasn't it last week?
August 20th.
Yes, the day before the last election, I was sitting at Frabato's having lunch, and I watched a vehicle pull up and stop at the light, she got out of the vehicle, put a political sign in the right-of-way, got back in her vehicle and drove away. I finished lunch, walked back to City Hall, spent a few minutes here, and walked back to go over to Kitty Stewart Park, or to the Archibald, sorry, to look at the groins, and the political sign had already been removed by the Sheriff's Department. So I believe that in the main roads, I can only speak to that, we are being diligent about that, and maybe that is because of the last election where there were some issues with signage. And in the neighborhoods, it probably is a little bit more haphazard with people campaigning and putting signs out in front of their house and not realizing where they are. So maybe the answer to that, instead of trying to police before it's done, is to have our community deputies specifically looking for that. They understand better right-of-ways, I think, than trying for us to take it on ourselves to educate a candidate.
And
So are you opposed to having that link in the packet so that we can say this is where you can?
I would want to find out from the city attorney whether or not we should, I don't personally care, but I also don't want the city to be opened up to, well, this is what you sent, and this is what I looked at, and this is what I did. Attorney Trask, do you have an opinion on that, or a?
Yeah, I don't see a negative on that. I mean, more information that we can provide the candidates would be, I think, would be the way to go. I'm not really concerned. I mean, ultimately, it's a tool. If the tool's not used properly or appropriately, that's on the candidate, but at least we'll give them some idea, and I think it would be helpful. So I agree. It should be included in the campaign packet.
I don't disagree.
If I might, I'd like to follow up on what the mayor's saying, but take it one step further. I don't think that there's any issue with the residential areas. So in my humble opinion, perhaps the board needs to look at the ordinance that states that you can't put it in the right-of-way, but perhaps we need to only have that in certain zones, zoning districts, or certain, Gulf Boulevard, Thomas Stewart Causeway, the residential areas. Who cares if you have a sign that's in the right-of-way, because you have such a large right-of-way in some of these residential areas where you have telephone poles that are 15 feet back from the curb. Who cares if you have a political sign that's only 3 feet away from the curb? I've never heard of any pushback or anyone having an issue. And I don't think that's what the sheriff's department's going to really be concentrating on. So it might be something to discuss.
So what you're saying is suggesting to change the ordinance and make it only apply to main thoroughfares?
Yes, that nod was actually a yes.
Right.
At
Well,
my
and that's,
microphone.
and before I didn't, that's
Yeah.
not what I understood. So yes,
Yes.
I wouldn't have an issue with that. I think that if we're not policing the signs in the neighborhoods and it's just on the main thoroughfares, I would be curious to know how many complaints the city's received or the sheriff's department's received, whoever's gotten them, over signage in residential neighborhoods, whether or not that's ever been an issue. I don't know. I don't know. I live on 150th, so I see the signs that go out on the main thoroughfares much more often than I do into the residential neighborhoods. I don't travel them as often.
As I recall, when I was putting out signs in the neighborhoods, the only discrepancy is if someone put it on a telephone pole or something like that. And as a result of that, I think whether or not we actively enforce it, we keep those ordinances in place so that if there's a discrepancy, if somebody says, hey, why is he allowed? Well, we can look at that ordinance and say, well, that is or is not allowed. That's, I mean, I see your point. The problem is in the public right of way and the public's parking in the public's parking lot. But I mean the Winn-Dixie parking lot.
It does still state in the ordinance that you can't put it on telephone poles and things like that.
Right. So keep all that. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't believe we have really a big problem with the residential areas, you know. I believe that also we should include, and I'm not quite sure what it is, what the fine is or what the jail time is. I believe it's a misdemeanor if you steal someone's signs. I know that we've had that problem before in the past. But we should also let the people know exactly what the punishment for that is also.
I think that's pretty well outlined in the packet, isn't it? Perhaps City Clerk can help me with that. Isn't it pretty well outlined about what you can't
Yes.
take a sign and what the fee, I mean, it happened in a couple elections ago, but it was clear that it was illegal.
Correct.
Yes, we put all the I include all our sign information and the document that is also included in the attachment. The summary of everything that we have in the code is in there, and plus I'm going to be including the link to the property appraisers. And so hopefully the candidates will read that, and if they have questions, they'll be who to contact for any clarification that they need.
If I may, Ms. Mayor, the political signs should always be on private properties. And, you know, and there are candidates, obviously, that have people that will help them put the signs up, and those folks are not surveyors. So they're going to just put wherever they put them. But to me, the way I understand it is that if the sign is placed in a right-of-way, they take a chance of losing that sign. So,
By the sheriff's
by
department.
the sheriff's department. So I really wouldn't want to personally overthink this. If it's not on the private property and there's no agreement, there has to be an agreement, obviously, between the candidate and the property owner to put the sign in there. But if it's in a right-of-way, on the pole, or wherever it is, they just take a chance of losing that sign.
We have a collection of signs, the city does, that have been taken from right-of-ways that were placed illegally.
They're expensive. They're not
Yes, they are.
cheap.
Commissioner Kerr, do you have any final recommendation?
No, that was just my
Yeah.
thought. I mean, who cares in a residential area? That's not where we had any issue when we had the mayoral election.
Okay, we will move on to community development, Johns Pass Village Activity Center standards.
So this is in reference to ordinance 2024-09, Appendix D for Johns Pass Village Activity Center Development Standards. You guys know the background and are obviously extremely familiar with that. So what I'll do is hop to some of the revisions we've made based on some of the feedback we had during the last meeting. If you'll go to packet page 197. At the bottom, D-107 setback requirements. We've added some verbiage to say that setbacks are the minimum required distance from the property lines to the outermost vertical component of a building. Step backs are measured from the lowest floor facade, or the lowest floor facade of the building. There seemed to be some, we wanted to make clarification with the step backs such that if you are already meeting your setback, you still have to have that step back. Doesn't preclude you from putting the step back when you build. So, and I kind of added that in the drawing that you guys received, which is on your packet page. Oh, I don't have the page number, but it's the one that I drew up, and it kind of shows you the step back coming from the facade of the building. So that was one change we made. Then if you go to packet page 200, D-108 maximum building height, we added some verbiage in the first sentence to say the following maximum building heights are measured from the design flood elevation in Johns Pass Village District to the eave line or the highest point of a flat roof of the building. That kind of helps us with buildings that have maybe different styled roofs and things like that. We feel like that maybe cleared it up a little bit for your eave line versus the top of your flat roof. So we felt like that provided a little more clarification. I think one of the more prominent changes comes under number 2, the commercial core, where we struck out option number C and altered A. We lowered it from 34 to 30 feet for the height. And then for 2B, we went ahead and lumped in all of the sizes a quarter acre or more to be no taller than 44 feet or not to exceed 3 stories over commercial. So you end up B with a maximum of 4 stories. So those were really what has changed since the meeting, kind of based on some feedback. And with that, I'll let you guys discuss this.
Do we have any public input? No public input? Okay, so commission, any comments? Oh, nope, sorry.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioner, so just clarity, I've just been obviously following this for the last couple of years on this one. Did this change, this change in the commercial code since the first reading? Like a couple weeks ago? Did that just change the height? I'm just trying to follow what the changes were. Marcy, did that since first reading?
Yes, so this changed since, based on conversation from the previous BOC meeting 2 weeks ago.
To drop it down to from
Correct.
4 stories over to 3 stories?
Correct. So we did have it for the larger of the lots. We had it at 55 feet, not to exceed 4 stories over ground floor parking.
Right.
So basically, you get a building that's 55 feet tall,
Right.
as measured from DFE.
Just
to-
in that one spot?
Just in that one spot. So
That was
we,
approved at first reading last time? Right.
correct,
Okay.
yes. And it has been, this was removed now based on the meeting 2 weeks ago. So this is the first time this revision has been published.
But it passed at the first reading last time, so there was another meeting after that meeting to reduce it?
So these,
I'm just trying to follow the path here.
So these corrections are not correct. Proposed changes weren't adopted at first reading. What would happen is when this goes to second reading, this would be included in the motion that when ordinance 2024-09 is adopted, that it would include these proposed changes to, I don't know, these sections or these pages. It would depend how Tom would want that to be said. It's kind of similar to its second reading for when the land use was done. There were some reductions in density that were done at second reading, where it was changed then. So it was adopted at first reading, as is the ordinances advertised in our legal ad, but these would be, if the board goes this direction, they would adopt this at second reading, these changes.
And this was staff's recommendations?
It was kind of based on some of the feedback we received during that meeting and having a meeting with Commissioner Kerr regarding the heights. And so we kind of took that feedback and tried to figure out what a happy medium was with that, and also taking into account the heights that are in the comprehensive plan and not wanting to go any lower than those. So going to just the 4 stories seemed to be the best compromise, and not going any lower than that.
Based on one commissioner's opinion and your conversation with that one commissioner? Because the meeting I was at, it was unanimous approval, and the multiple meetings I was at prior to that, and all the city meetings that I was at, and probably the dozen public meetings and all the other meetings, that was never come up. So just one opinion caused you guys to, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, so
I don't think that's, if it's an opinion thing, I don't think that's, my opinion is that doesn't make any sense, because I think it's one person's opinion to change that. That's just one guy's opinion on this side. I don't see how that could happen.
Well, I didn't want to imply that it was just one person's opinion, but I also, we've worked really hard on this, and I think we want to make sure that we have something that does pass and work for everybody. So it was kind of, in response to that as well, so.
I just thought it
but-
did pass the last reading. So I'm just trying to get clarification where it came from.
There are 2 public hearings.
Correct. No, I know.
Okay, so it did not pass at the first
No,
meeting.
well, the first reading was unanimous.
The first reading, there was basically that was produced and in
Right.
the agenda. And, we often have between the first and the second reading, either substantive changes or minor changes. If it's a substantive change, we require a third public hearing.
Right.
If it is a minor change, which this may fall into that, it would only require the second hearing. But the way it would happen, it would be a motion to approve this ordinance as presented, make notation that the following changes have been made since the first reading. So obviously, one reading does not approve
No,
the
I
ordinance.
know the process. This is the first I've heard of it. I've just been following this for a very, very, very long time. And I was just wondering the source of it, and I got the source of it. It was a meeting, an opinion, and a staff meeting that changed it, so. It
Actually,
didn't seem like it was perfect. A
actually,
lot of people
it just wasn't
discussed
Mr. Kerr.
Yeah.
Right.
There was a discussion of the entire commission on this issue. And
I didn't hear that, but I just heard what I heard, that's all. So
Okay.
that's okay. All I'm asking is how that, what was the origin of that, where it came from, so that was the question.
And if you wanted to, you could go back and watch the video, and it would reflect the discussion of the entire commission.
Yeah.
And so that's what city staff was trying to do, take that discussion of the entire
After
commission.
first reading?
you know,
Another
at the
meeting that
meeting
happened
when it was first read, at that meeting.
Before the vote.
Yes, before the vote.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I was clarifying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have any further public comment?
I've got, and Bill Carnes, by the way, 400, 150th Avenue. I'm looking at the change, it looks like it's only affected in the commercial core area, is that correct?
Yes,
Everything else stayed the way it was, all approved before?
correct.
Probably-
Sorry, wait, hold on one second. There was a change, sorry. In D108, number 5, also was lowered from 34 to 30 feet, 5A. Apologize for that.
Traditional.
But we didn't
65
change
years old,
stories
my eyes
allowance.
aren't as good as they used to be, so
Yeah, no, so it was for
I see that green
traditional
up above
village,
there.
yeah, for traditional village. It was lowered from
that's the traditional.
34 to 30, yeah.
Okay.
But we didn't touch the stories. The stories remain the same.
All right, well, as with Mr. Beggins, I've followed this through from day one that it was presented. This activity center has been kicked the can down the road more times than I can remember. A process that, when I purchased property in Johns Pass, was told this was going to be about an 8-month process. It's 3 years. I'm not getting any younger. I can tell you right now, I'm the largest property owner in the commercial core area. And talked with all of the neighbors, talked with all of the commissioners. This, this change seems to me to, I feel like it's directly affects me more than anybody else. And I don't like it. I don't like anything about it. I think the whole process has been just, I don't know how many workshops, I've been to all of them, It just doesn't seem right. I agree with Jeff. I thought everything went through. I know there was some discussion again at that first meeting. I believe Mr. Tagliarini made the motion at that meeting. It was seconded, it was voted on. And it seems like at the 12th hour, you're knocking one floor off. And it probably won't affect me, but I can guarantee you it's going to affect the city. It's going to affect you guys. Because one of the things I wanted to do when I redeveloped my property, which I have every right to redevelop my property, was to give the city parking that the city needs. I'm looking at them spending millions of dollars trying to get parking. And you got guys standing right here saying, hey, I'm going to give you parking. This eliminates any possibility of me providing the city, which I've provided so many things over the 20-plus years I've been here, to the city, trying to be a good neighbor, and then I get this garbage brought up at the last minute. That doesn't hurt me. It hurts you. It's ridiculous.
Do we have any further public comment? Commission?
Could we get some clarification? We're looking at the height, and we're looking at, let's say, a height from the ground, and then we'll look at the height from design flood elevation. Would you, and the height, I guess, we're measuring it to the ceiling, not to the top, not to the roof. We're going to the ceiling. Am I correct?
Correct. So the height provided is to the eave line, like what's shown there, and then, or the top of a flat roof. So if you have a flat roof versus a roof that's got an eave line with some ornamental stuff coming across it, we're just measuring from the design flood elevation to the eave height.
All right, so would you clarify what we are intending to do as far as height from the ground and from the DFE?
So nothing, nothing necessarily from the ground as far as a footage measurement. It would only start measurement at DFE.
Okay, so what is that? What's the height we're looking to get? I guess it is
So are you referring to
41, 6 inches? Is that what I'm looking at?
This is an example. So this was just an example of if you had a building that had like a high first floor at 16 feet with the two-foot, trusses in between, and then 10-foot floors. So you can flex it however you want, but this is just an example of, a random example of what a four-story building could look like. So that's kind of why we did it, but we do not have any measurements from the ground. We just have stories and then height above the DFE.
Okay, and that's fine. So we measure the height from DFE to the eave line. So what are we asking to, what are we trying to pass as far as that height?
So
Just to clarify for public.
correct. So in the commercial core, it originally was proposed as 34 feet above DFE to the eave line.
Okay.
That, with this change, was lowered to 30 feet from DFE to eave line. So we've just minus 4 feet, the pretty straightforward change with that. For 2B and C, we've basically gotten rid of the option for the larger lot, and we've lumped everything into a quarter acre or more is 44 feet. And we've gotten rid of the half an acre or larger, which could have been 55 feet from DFE. So we removed that option, lumped it all together, and even if you have a larger lot, you're still at 44 feet. So basically, and then with the 3 stories over parking, or commercial, sorry. Yep. So we removed the option of 5 stories on a larger lot at a height of 55 feet.
Honestly, I am not in favor of counting stories. I mean, that's just me speaking.
Right.
I just go based on height. And,
No, understood.
and trying to analyze, if this height makes sense. I can understand in certain areas you want to keep the buildings pretty low. In some other areas, you have to give it a little bit more height.
And then in traditional village, we did the same thing. We lowered it from 34 feet to 30 feet above DFE. So similar change, knocking out the 4 feet.
Okay, and typical ground in John's Pass is 4, elevation 4, 4
You're
and a
right
half.
around, yeah, pretty
And
good.
then, so you add basically a flood zone there is at what, 10 or 10?
We have
11?
10, 11, 12, so.
So let's say 10, and then you add 4 feet of freeboard to that, right?
Yep.
So that becomes, let's say, 14 minus, so you got a 10-foot of free height, basically.
Yeah, 10 foot of it, the zone 2, that would have to be flood proofed as well.
So the overall height would be 10 plus 30 feet?
Correct, if you measured from ground, exactly, yep.
40 feet
Yep.
height.
And we did show that, that's kind of in that depiction that's in your packet.
So in our picture included in your packet, so with this example we just made showing what 4 stories from grade or 3 stories of livable over 1 floor of flood-proof commercial, this would potentially be 52 feet from grade to the eave line of the roof. So this is an example one.
Any deviation from the height can go before the special magistrate, right? Is that what I remember from previous discussions?
If you wanted to go with the alternate use, what would the process be for that, Andrew?
I mean, with the height, it's locked into the zoning. I mean, you'd have to rezone to a planned development
Yeah, you'd have to do a
have
PD.
flexibility on the height. I mean, our goal really with the Johns Pass was to lock in these height limits. So, and other standards to try to make sure new development follows that. One thing with PDs down there, though, we did add the requirement that it would still need to meet the design standards and guidelines, which we've tried to basically go look through every scenario that could happen and try to make sure to have control of the outcomes as
Yeah.
much as possible. But with the height thing, they would have to rezone.
It'd have to do a
to
PD
To
to get
PD,
additional height.
and is there any criteria that we can have in that PD zoning to allow for a higher height if there are incentives basically provided?
The PD would allow for that. You'd still have some other limitations, and obviously, we don't really want to set up a system where we're encouraging PDs. We'd rather have something that's reasonably buildable by right, because the PDs with the development agreements and all that gets, as we know, isn't really our favorite route to go. So ideally, we come up with something here that is reasonable and buildable.
Yeah. One thing that's important to remember is this is basically just a screenshot from the master plan, but I wanted to at least show kind of what was previously proposed back then in the various zoning districts, and then how they describe building height and massing. So outside getting feedback from you guys and the Plan Commission and residents, we did previously look back at it. So back then in the C1 tourist commercial, which encompasses basically the commercial core and traditional village, back then they proposed 4 stories from grade or 3 stories of habitable over 1 story of flood-proof ground floor retail. And then in some zone, like depending on if it's along Gulf Boulevard within the watershed of either like an activity center, like certain like commercial zoning, they would allow for similar height to what we were previously proposing with the 5 stories from grade or 4 stories of habitable over 1 story of flood-proof commercial. I think it's important to have some flexibility because for height, and that's why, but we wanted to make sure to regulate both the height in feet and stories, because sometimes commercial space on the ground floor, they like the higher ceilings, like if it's like a restaurant and they want it to be more open, but you still want to give them kind of the flexibility to be able to work with that. We also looked at an existing building, the Mena's Landing. It's like a mixed-use building with commercial at grade and a little bit and some commercial space, and then some condo units that are now used as temporary lodging up on here. And Marcy went into Bluebeam and measured out like the height of different things on the building. Just as another example, just to see. There is a rooftop access that's up top where the staircase goes to like a 4th floor that's open for rooftop access on this building.
Any additional comments?
I do.
I just want to say, I understand that this Marcy mentioned that it came from Commissioner Kerr, but we had a discussion about this. This was a consensus, or we at least discussed it. So he did. I don't feel like Commissioner Kerr just went out of his way to put this opinion by himself.
No, I'm sorry, and I wanted to correct that too, because we actually met with Kerr, but it was based on the discussion takeaway. So I apologize. I definitely didn't mean to imply that, but it was, yeah.
Thank you. And then since Mr. Carnes mentioned it, I did make the motion, but for the Johns Pass Village designation.
No,
Community center designation.
we voted on this at our last meeting.
Initially, the one he's talking about was when I made that, but that was just the designation. The rest of this had to come later, and I may have made that motion also, but initially, that motion I made was for the Johns Pass Village Activity Center designation. And then came the work of the setbacks and the height restrictions and all that stuff.
I just want to clarify, at our last meeting, did we not vote on this? We voted on heights at the last meeting, and we did vote on the height because, and forgive me, but for over a year, I have sat up here and we've talked about heights. We've talked about heights, we've talked about heights, we've talked about heights. And I know we talked about the heights when we voted on it because my comment was, with all due respect, Commissioner Kerr wanted to talk about lowering. You made the motion to go ahead and move forward with it. We all voted yes. I don't understand, in the exhaustive conversations that I've had with the planning department, with the meetings that we've had. I started talking about this when I was a planning commissioner. I've sat at many public meetings, and at our last meeting, when the discussion came up of lowering these heights, I said, there's nobody here. Not a single person was here to ask us to go lower, and we were discussing changing something that had been drawn up after many meetings, many conversations with residents. And what I don't understand about the change is if you make this change and we lower the heights yet again, because we have lowered them in the past, and if we lower them yet again, it's only encouraging planned developments. That's all it's going to do. Because you're talking about taking out larger than a half-acre lot. It doesn't make it, in the commercial core, we're not talking about the Johns Pass traditional village, and I mean, which we did lower that to 30 feet, of which I don't understand that either, because I thought that we had been proposing numbers that were based on existing buildings. So to totally change the commercial core, what about the parking garage? There's a parking garage already there that's 6 stories, and you can't tell that it's 6 stories. You cannot look at that building and tell it's 6 stories, but it's a 6-story building with retail and parking. And we had all exhaustively, again, talked about keeping some consistency with that. So I fail to understand why we're talking again about reducing height and trying to keep what's there, and to just totally remove a larger than half acre. So you're telling somebody, if you're a quarter acre, it's the same if you're a quarter acre or you're a half acre or you're an acre. It doesn't matter how much land you own. You're going to build this little building, and it's only going to be this big. And oh, by the way, when you're building a building, you still have all the other things that are required by Forward Pinellas, is FAR and everything else. So, I mean, this, based off of the knowledge I have from all of the conversations and meetings we've had, you're encouraging to do just the opposite of what the planning department is telling us they want to do. I do not understand at this stage in voting on the height for the commercial core and changing the traditional village, why we're doing that now, after a year and a half of us working on this as a commission. The only person not sitting up here that hasn't been involved in those conversations for the last year and a half is Hoosh, Commissioner, and he was on the Planning Commission. And the other thing that I'd like to remind all of us is that what was presented to us at the last meeting that we all voted yes on, all 5 of us voted yes, was exhaustively reviewed by the Planning Commission before it got to us. So we'd done meeting after meeting after meeting with the community, workshops, write down what you want. They took all that information. They brought something together. We did tours of Johns Pass. They brought that together. It went to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has been very thorough doing their job. And then it came to us. And we're going to change it again. I just do not understand the need to make changes at this point. I don't understand that reasoning when we've all voted on it in the past.
I guess it's my turn. Before I forget, I want to talk about the height, but on page 198, the commercial core, number 2A, front yard buildings with 1 story of 0 feet minimum setback. I'd like to address that. I don't understand that 0 setback, what that actually means. Or we can do that real quick.
Can you repeat which
Page 198.
Okay. And you're reading from which one?
Commercial
The commercial core? Okay.
Commercial core 2A, 1, buildings 1 story, 0 feet minimum to 5 feet maximum setback. I don't understand how that works with a 0.
Yeah. So you can literally be at your property line. So you can be right on your property line. You do not have
Do we
to
have any examples of that now in that commercial
Well,
core area?
Remember when we did the walkthrough? There was a few of them that were like right up on the property line, especially the backside of a boardwalk. So some of those buildings were like right up to the property line.
That was in Boardwalk. That's not commercial.
No,
Correct.
on
No, I'm just saying
commercial
that
core,
visually,
if you
that's what
look
it's
at,
like, so-
I can pull up an example.
Yeah, sorry about
Real
that.
fast. So for example, let me just zoom in real. Well, here's an example of one of the commercial buildings that's like right up to the property line. That's a 1-story building in the commercial core, where it's basically right up to the sidewalk that's in our right of way, but it's like right on it. So that's an example. Here's another example of a 1-story building. So these are, and then the sidewalk's pretty wide in our.
Okay, I just didn't was having a mind block of thinking, how can that be? Because then you wouldn't necessarily have any sidewalk, but apparently you do, because the sidewalk is not on their city. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out and get a clarification. Okay. After the last meeting, I did vote yes. On a first reading, what that means is that it's not gonna die. It's gonna move forward to a second reading. That's what a first reading is all about. So after the meeting, I requested, even though I went to the public meetings, I requested the data, the raw data on the outcome of the public meeting. And the city staff was very nice to put this in my mailbox a few days later. So I've gone through that, everything I can see. I went to every meeting. I left early on the last meeting due to other things I needed to do. And what I heard was that we just don't want it any higher than existing. I personally believe that the staff took that as the height. Well, it was presented as the parking garage in the commercial core is 55 feet. It's my belief that that's not what I was hearing at the public meetings. My belief is that the height we can live with what the height is currently. So city staff and Robin asked me to come in to clarify my thoughts. It's not like I reached out and said I need to have a meeting. Actually, we have one-on-ones quite often with the city manager, and the first time the city manager asked me to come in for a one-on-one. No mention that community development would be there. I blew it and didn't show up. And so the following but we set a new time as soon as he could, and the second meeting I knew community development would be there, and we discussed what my thoughts were, because I was the one that spoke most about this, and I spoke that I believed that this it was going to go to the Planning Commission, and then it was going to come to a workshop, and I was surprised to see it at an actual board meeting to vote on, because we typically get to see things at a workshop after it's gone to the Planning Commission, not directly for a vote, directly from the Planning Commission. So, looking at the raw data, except for one exception, which was 44 feet, there was lots of votes for the 34 feet and lots of votes for the 55 feet. So it really doesn't, by reading the raw data, doesn't give me what I'm looking for, but I understand why the city staff wrote what they wrote, what we're reading here now. Yes, we've been going over this for 3 years, but it's only now that we have something in writing on what we believe the heights are. We didn't have that months ago. And that was my thoughts on that. So, during our meeting, I asked Marcy and the staff, what does that look like? What does the highest eve in the past, I'm not talking about the parking garages, everyone admits you can't see the parking lot from inside the village, you just can't. So what is the highest eve? And we had, at that meeting, our last meeting 2 weeks ago, that highest eve was 44 feet from grade or 34 feet from the DFE. Now, Marcy was going to make a visit back down before the deadline, and I don't know that she's had an opportunity to disclose that, but I'm assuming that the drawing on page 211 kind of, well, I don't want to put words in her mouth. What did you find there, if you don't mind?
So we finally found the blueprints for this, or some of the pages for the plans for this project. We did a different look because it's under Minas Landing or something. So I actually did go down. So the pictures that you see here are taken from the highest floor I could get to. The very top is locked because that's where their equipment is. But from the third floor, I did go up there and did a quick check. The drawings look to represent what was actually built there. So what I was able to measure here represents, plus or minus what was built. So the heights that you see here are what's in place. We focused on this building. We felt like it was probably a good example of what we're hoping to see with the depth, the changes in depths and how the facade looks and some ornamental stuff with the roof. So we focused on this one. So I did go down and look at it, but honestly, I think the weather was coming in, so this was there's probably a picture of it too. But so this was the main building I focused on in commercial core.
Okay, so looking at the drawing, this being the highest building in the commercial core, the way I'm reading here is the eave at that very top, that lookout on the top, which I don't even know is occupied. It's just a lookout. The highest eave is 35 feet above DFA. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes, to the eave line of the tower, correct.
I think it's important to remember that when this was built, we didn't require 4 feet of freeboard, and these were built as residential condominiums, so the density was 15 units per acre. If they had built them as temporary lodging, most likely they would have built out that fourth floor because they would have had the dead city to do that. So it's important to remember those two things when looking at this building, since it was built in the 2000s.
Okay, that's a good point, Andrew. Thank you. But regardless, this is probably the highest eave height in the commercial core, and that's 35 feet. So an argument could be made throughout the commercial core, right now throughout the commercial core, as it stands before any of this passes, it's 35 feet from grade to the top of the roof. Is that correct?
From grade, for this building to the top of the roof, it's 49 feet from grade, at least in how it's shown in the plans.
Okay, but I'm just wondering, if I wanted to build something down there, did this meet that standard? I don't know what the current zoning is.
I think when these were done, I know with the parking garage, it looked like there were some variances that were done. I don't, with this specific one, I'd have to see, because I know.
But by right, if I wanted to build something, not getting a variance, by right, currently, it's my understanding that it's 35 feet from grade. I try to be a property rights advocate. When I buy a piece of property, it has certain zoning to it, and I should be able to do anything I want to on that property that meets that zoning. So I don't want to take away anything, but I want to show, if anything, that we're adding value to property in the village.
So
We're not taking away anything.
So as of right now, we measure currently from design flood elevation. So this, as of right now, with what it's zoned right now on the ground, it's 34 feet from design flood elevation to the top of the roof.
I stand corrected there. Okay. That was my understanding, and I'm open for that, absolutely. All right. So I'm trying to work through my mindset. You know, we have advocates for maximizing the height. We have advocates for minimizing the heights. We had that during our public meetings. In my mind, what I'm feeling from the public meetings and people that I talk to at those meetings, we want to maintain what we have. So those kind of discussions is how I believe staff felt, based on our discussions, based on the meeting 2 weeks ago, where they made the decision that, based on the FAR of 2.0 and this, that they thought that the 44 feet is actually a bit of a middle ground. That's actually 10 feet taller than anything in the core currently. And again, I'm not talking about the parking garage. You can't see the parking garage. In my mind, that's not what we're considering here. I don't want, I can only answer to myself and how I feel when I'm speaking to my neighbors. I don't want to change the feel of the village. It's a very important part of our community. So I think I could make myself get to where you are here. It's either that, or I would, 2 weeks from now, want to take that piece out totally and have that come to a different discussion and approve everything else, and so we don't slow the system down. But
Are you talking about, I'm sorry, Commissioner, are you talking about C, 2C?
well, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
to do it as I could be convinced with the changes in the green, even though that's 10 foot taller than anything we have in the commercial core, walking around where we spend all our time. You know, when we're over at the parking garage, we're either up on the boardwalk or, you know, up in Bubba Gumps, or that's not where we spend our time. It's either that or I just can't. If it goes to the back to the 55, that just know you don't have my vote. That's all.
You're saying, I need you to clarify that. You're saying that they could revert everything back to what it was before, and you would vote for it as long as C was not part of it? Is that what you said?
Didn't you say?
I would say I would vote for the changes that they had, even though they exceed, in my mind, what my interpretation of the public comments during all those meetings. I believe that that's 10 foot taller than existing.
You think 30 feet is 10 feet taller?
No, 44 feet is 10.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes. So basically, accepting what's being written here, I would vote that that's a compromise I can live with.
I mean, when you brought this to us 2 weeks ago, that was your recommendation. 2 weeks ago, your recommendation was 34 feet, larger than quarter acre to a half acre, 44 feet, lots equal to or larger than a half acre, 55 feet, not to exceed 4 stories over ground. That was staff's recommendation to us after all the meetings. That was the recommendation that we received from staff.
Correct, that's
Okay.
what we had written.
Thank you. I mean, I agree with the staff recommendation that we received 2 weeks ago. I voted yes for that because that's what I agreed with. If I didn't agree with it, I would have voted no. I agreed yes. I feel like that represented what I heard verbally said in meetings. It also represented that no one showed up to say, no, I don't want that. And I'm definitely have been a big advocate for keeping the character of the village. I don't see where this is going to change the character of the village. This is in keeping with the village. The village is going to expand. It's going to have changes. There's parking lots that are going to go away and become buildings. I don't know what those look like. But they're going to come back to us, or they're going to go by right. We're not talking about changing the character of the village, but you can't discount that there's a parking garage there, that it exists. It exists. And I can't wrap my head around why we would change. We've had all the conversations, staff brought us the recommendation, and now we're going to change the recommendation, and that's a drastic change. That's a big change to what was originally recommended to us for the village. That's just my opinion. Based off of sitting in this chair up here, sitting in the Planning Commission before, and communicating with the residents in the community that came to the meetings.
And
I totally agree with the mayor on this. 2 weeks ago, when we were in the meeting, we all agreed on Section D-108, the maximum building height. The people that I have talked to that live here in Madeira Beach also agreed. The whole board up here agreed. We all agreed on that. I believe that if we change it, what we're going to do is we're only going to encourage PDs, and we don't want PDs. And we don't want we need something set in stone. I don't believe it's going to hurt the character of Johns Pass one bit. You know, I believe it's going to bring in more revenue to our city, and it's going to bring in more parking available to people that want to come here. So in that case, and that's why I vote to go back to the original Section D-108. Thank you.
I did just want to add to, talking about, the work that we did to get the information out there. along with the first reading, we did send mailers out with everybody within the 300 foot, and obviously we didn't have anybody show up, nor did we hear, we haven't heard, ever since we kind of got this ironed out and published, we've not gotten a ton of, any negative feedback really, and so, just as a note.
Mayor,
You'd-
could I
yes,
ask, I'm
please.
sorry, I had to step out and I came in at the tail end of what Commissioner Kerr was saying about what he would accept as a compromise. Can you restate that just for clarification?
I would accept what is written here tonight, which is striking the 55 feet, which is really 65 feet from grade to the eave, which is, the 55 feet would be 20 feet taller than anything in the village.
So with all the line throughs and additions, that's what you're in support of?
I would vote for that. Personally, I believe that the village is better served at the 34 feet, but I would agree to the 44 feet at the eave. If it goes to 55 feet, I'm going to hold my head high with my neighbors and say, I didn't vote for it. So when someone's railing at me, I didn't vote for it.
So 44 feet from DFE to eve height, right? I think that's a pretty good compromise.
How tall is the parking garage? I mean, you can't discount it's there. How tall is it? Because who's to say, just how tall is it? 65 feet.
65.
So the commercial corridor, the tallest building in the commercial corridor is 65 feet. And we're voting, if we were voting on this tonight, the vote is for a maximum height of 44 feet.
Correct,
That's
correct.
not keeping with what is there. I mean, we don't know what anybody is going to do with any property down there. We know what we can control. We can control, so what if someone wanted to build a building just like the parking garage, exactly like it, and they had the land, and they came here and said, I want to build a parking garage at the other end. It's going to look just like the one next to Gulf Boulevard, and you're not going to know it's a parking garage because it's going to have all this retail underneath. It's going to have all this retail up top. It's going to look like this the parking garage is a great-looking building, and we already have one. Somebody says, I want to build something that looks just like it. You're going to say, no, I'm not saying that's what I want. I'm not advocating that, but I'm just saying. Or what if the parking garage burns to the ground? They can't rebuild it because it wouldn't meet code. So if somebody buys an acre of land down there, or 2 acres of land, or they own 3/4 of an acre of land, it's over a half acre, and they want to build something, if we go this restrictive, they're not going to build this restrictive. They're going to come in with the plan development, a PD, which is exactly what the planning department with the previous presentation to us of the 55 feet, the whole idea of the way the commercial core was written and the traditional village at 34 feet was so that it would encourage anyone who owns property to build by right. This is going to encourage anyone who owns property to build out of by right and to go through all the motion. Because here's the thing, and I guess you can change it and do it this way, because when a developer goes to build something, there has to be an incentive for the developer to go for a plan development, right? It's got to make financial sense to someone to want to come in here and do that. So when you make it this restrictive, there's a lot of financial incentive for a developer to come in here and do a plan development, because they're not going to be able to build reasonable by right or by what we have. So you're encouraging a developer to build a planned development there and ask for the moon to build something. This, as it sits presented to us tonight, is encouraging a developer to do a planned development, which is exactly what the planning department was working towards not having happen.
With that logic, we might as well just open it up to anything they want to build.
No, I'm not saying that, but I mean, we worked for a very long time listening to their advice. And so we come in and I didn't ask them to change anything. We sat in the meeting and everyone sitting up here agreed, you did have questions. I don't understand those questions, nor do I understand the concern based off of the community feedback and based off of the recommendation of staff. And there are all of their reasonings behind that. I don't understand making such drastic changes to things that we had previously discussed and agreed upon.
If the zoning in the area is 35 feet, then the parking garage must have been built with a variance as a PD. It must have. So I can't speak to that back in the time. I don't know when that was built. That was probably built, what, 20 years ago? Whatever, it doesn't matter. But the character of the village is where my heart is. And 55 feet is going to, in my belief, is going to ruin the character of the village. Now, you have a different belief. Other people on the board might have a different belief. But I have to vote my conscience. If it goes to 55 feet, then that's fine. But then you're going to need to carry the votes by the board. I won't be a part of it.
I think our greatest opportunity in keeping the pass with the character of the pass, and I've said this many times, is not tied to height or stories as much as it is tied to the aesthetics of the building. I think a perfect example is the Cambria. With all due respect to the Cambria, that building is out of place in Madeira Beach. It's square. It's not particularly beachy looking at all. And had the focus been placed more on the aesthetics of the building to the height, and I'm not advocating that it should be taller, but a lot more could have been obtained in aesthetics if the thoughtfulness had been more to how it looks. I think I've said that, I feel like, a million times, but.
Mayor, if I could, I have to say I've been confused tonight, but my understanding was, and this is obviously incorrect, that we were approving something that wouldn't go higher than the garage.
That is correct.
So at 55 feet, that's lower than the garage, isn't it? So that's already not as high as the garage.
We're doing 55.
But we're talking about taking that away.
Right, no, I'm
Right.
sorry, before the green
Right.
line throughs. Right, so 55 was basically part of what we voted on in the first reading. Okay, thanks, I just needed that
Yes, yes.
clarification, thank you.
Any more comments?
Well, I've been going to Johns Pass Village since 2005. It's a great place, and many great memories and great times there, along with a lot of people here on the board and at home. So I don't believe that the people of Madeira Beach that I've talked to so far are going to be less inclined going to Johns Pass if it was at 55 feet. And I believe, like I said before, we've been up here for a year and a half talking about this. It's time that we encourage a little bit of transactional change, competent change, realistic change in order to build Madeira Beach in the future for future generations to come. So that's what I believe. So thank you.
Any more comments?
And just to be clear, that 55 feet is for commercial core only?
Correct.
Right, Doesn't apply to the traditional or any of the other. Okay, thank you.
No.
I would just ask Andrew to confirm the height of the parking garage. Is that 55 feet from grade or 55 feet from TFE? Or 65 feet, or whatever you were,
Yeah.
Should I just pull up the plan?
65 feet from the ground, it's 65
grade.
feet. If you subtract it out, if you were to measure it from DFE, it would be minus.
roughly 55 feet. So I believe Commissioner Taglerini was under the wrong impression. So they're not asking for something less than the parking garage,
But equal to.
but equal to the parking garage.
Correct. That is about where it would land to the absolute highest point is roughly around the 55 feet if you were to measure it from our current DFE.
Right.
Yeah, so
Okay,
it wouldn't be
because, I
any
mean,
taller.
that
Right.
number's been thrown around. The parking garage, 65 feet, parking garage, 55 feet. So I wanted to clarify it, so it's in everyone's mind. But the largest structure on this side of the overpass, I'm going to call it the bridge, is what we're looking at in our packet, and that's 35 feet to the eave, which is that lookout on the top of that turquoise structure. And that is what I consider the commercial core. That is, you know, the parking garage section is almost a separate character district in my mind, but I'm only one vote.
If I may add, if FAR is 2.0, so that by itself could really be a controlling factor of height.
Correct.
So if you imagine 2 floors of a parcel that's entirely filled with structure, that's basically 2.0. So 2 floors of entirely filling. So just because we can vote for a height of, let's say, 55 feet above DFE, it doesn't mean that they can really achieve it. It just gives them the flexibility of undulating the building, narrowing it up, giving all those step backs that, we like to see. I think we just are short-sighted if we don't think of that FAR as a component of the height.
I agree.
Before you close on this, I do have one other comment. On page 220, you have a graph about the principal uses. And the question I have for the commercial core, temporary lodging, we have, I'm just going by my notes, that the first floor commercial, does that mean the entire first floor must be commercial? Does it mean 20% of the first floor needs to be commercial? Does it mean 50%? Does it mean road frontage has to be commercial? What is that, can we get more clarification in that requirement?
So it's written where at grade, at the street frontage, you would have flood-proof commercial space. Partially under the building, you could have parking behind that space off of the alley or behind the building. That we basically wrote it in the way of when we were looking at that turquoise building, it has the ground floor retail and then parking behind it under the building too.
Okay, can we have more clarification added to that before the next, just to further define that? I know you understand it, but you may not be here when, not that you're going anywhere, I hope. That's all I have.
Anything further? No? Okay.
Mayor, before we move on, we need to get some clear direction when we bring this ordinance back. So we're going to bring it back as it was first read, from what I'm gathering. And so if we're given different direction, that you need to tell us now so that we know what to bring back for you. And while you're thinking about that little question, I just want to make sure if we're bringing it back like it was at the prior meeting, which is what I'm hearing, do we want to include the language or highest point of a flat roof? Because that's a little bit different. And I think that staff is recommending that. So what we'd like to bring back to you is exactly like it was last time, except we're going to add the words or highest point of a flat roof in the beginning paragraph of section D 108. Is that what we're doing?
That is what I would agree with.
Yeah, I'm seeing heads shaking.
Yes.
If I may, I would like to add basically parapet walls that may be 4 feet above that, and also elevator shaft that may be 16 feet above that. So
That's a separate code section.
That's separate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, that's, okay, thank you. That's helpful to us, thank you.
Thank
To
you.
to also clarify too, there was a sentence change on page 197, the first sentence in D107. We'd also like to retain that as well. It's just more of a clarification sentence.
Good catch.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think that was a
Thank
good
you.
clarification.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
So we will move on to discussion of potential amendments to alcoholic beverages, noise, and special events in the Madeira Beach Code of Ordinances. I'm not certain who's
Mayor, that's me.
presenting. I know it's you, but I didn't know if anyone was going to
I
present
don't
with
think so
you.
because Mr. Gomez isn't here.
Okay. I remember us having this conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is not related to John's Pass Village Activity Center.
Right.
Although I'm talking about the transitional section, right?
Yes.
Literally from 131st to 133rd, all right? And only the businesses, not the neighborhood behind Madeira Bay.
Isn't that primarily where the Barefoot Beach, the cantina, the, right in
Yes,
that little area right there?
Now, the only two actual businesses aside from, well, okay, I understand that Barefoot Beach, Madeira Bay, they are businesses, but they're the business of people, of residents, people
Right.
staying there, right? The cantina and I think TRS may be the only other business in the transitional zone. So I had just a little history. What I had asked about earlier was, since we're doing these specific zone settings ordinances, if we could include some things that residents have talked to me about, which I'm in favor of, as I agree with them. But it was pointed out to me that this discussion here is about setbacks and height restrictions and that type of thing. So what I'd like to talk about today is making these changes part of amendments to existing ordinances. And the three things, just to make it as simple as possible, between 131st and 133rd to the beach, but not back into the neighborhood behind Cantina, I would like to request no amplified music amended to our sound ordinances. I'd like to recommend no rooftop bar liquor license, which that would, yes, rooftop bar liquor license or rooftop bars. And finally, no special activity permits on the beach for that 2 blocks. The reason why, as I'm sure you're aware, Barefoot Beach literally is across the street from single-family dwellings. And there's a lot of single-family dwellings on the beach between 133rd and 131st. So I would like to see an exception made with those things. I don't think it's going to hurt any, it doesn't prohibit rooftop patios, which I know Barefoot Beach has. It's just no bars up there, all right? So my request from tonight, and we can discuss this, would be if we could have amendments made to the sound, special permit, and I guess alcohol ordinances, amendments made to reflect those requests from the residents.
Okay. Do we have any public comment? There's only one.
I guess I'm stuck here tonight. I'm Jeff Beggins again. I actually live in the corner. I actually own the building that the canteen is in, one of the partners in it, and good friends with the people who own Barefoot. And I understand the idea behind it, but I also understand that we have current noise ordinances and ordinances on the books already that govern that. So if those were to be broken, those business owners would have to stop doing that. So I think that's overreach, in my opinion, on those local businesses that have to abide by the ordinances that are in place right now. Right? So why punish them any further? Because I'm not aware of a massive problem. I think there's one or two residences that have a personal issue. Those residences, in my opinion, I'll put my real estate hat on for a second, when you buy a home, right, next to in a commercial zoned area, you know the risk of living a residential home in a commercial hotel zoned area. I mean, it's not new. It's always been that way, right? So there's that risk. So I know it's come up in other places too. If I live in a residential area, I'd be pissed if somebody opened a bar in my residential area. But if I bought a house next door to a hotel, or I bought a house that's zoned for a hotel, and next door to me is a hotel, I know what I'm buying into. So I think that there's a couple people that have a personal decision on this one, or a personal thought on this one. But I think from a ordinance perspective, there's noise ordinances already. There's already restrictions in there to keep things in play. And I think everybody knows Barefoot is actively trying to get a liquor license. You know that. They've been in front of you. It's been on the agenda item too. So I think that's a preemptive move that I think is discriminatory towards one particular property owner. And I think the ordinances are in effect to solve the noise issue from the other one. So that's my perspective from a guy who lives in the district and owns the property there.
Sir, can I ask you a question, Jeff? Are you opposed to all three ideas, the special events on the beach, the amplified noise, sound, and the rooftop bars?
Yeah.
You're opposed to all three of those?
I think all three of them are already addressed in the ordinances as they sit right now. I think there's an ability to get a special events permit if you do it the way it's allowed to be in the codes right now. I don't know if it's been abused. Maybe it's news to me, but it's already allowed, right? So why not? Unless it's been abused, and if there's been abuse, they pay whatever fines for the abuse, right? From amplified music, I'm not aware of massive problems with that. And, so yes, the answer would be I would be opposed to all of those because I think all three are addressed in the current ordinances the way that they're written right now in there, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
So just to be clear, amplified noise music is not specifically covered. I'm asking for this to be specific. Sound is an issue in general because unless our ordinance says the sound can't emit 50 feet beyond the source anytime, right? Unless we're going to buy our share of sound noise meters, which isn't a terrible idea to make sure they have them. It's hard to enforce that. And with regards to the rooftop bars, yes, of course, I'm aware of the situation at Barefoot Beach, but the neighbors are also concerned about future businesses, right? So those are. I mean, I'm going to stick with my recommendation. We can discuss it however you want. Amplified sound. And there has been abuse on the beach with special permits because, and that's not all the way to Johns Pass. It's to 131st. Once you get to the jetty, it's a free-for-all. You can do what you want. It's just those two blocks which have a lot of single-family dwellings. So that's what I'd like to discuss. I welcome your input, Commissioners. Mayor.
Commissioners?
I'm actually open for discussion, I do have one question. You said there would still be a patio on the rooftop, but you would not be able to drink alcohol up there. Right?
That's always going to be a tricky area, but I mean, I guess what I'm
tricky.
concerned about is issuing a liquor license. If like, for instance, if I don't think Cantina has a rooftop. Does Cantina have a rooftop bar? No. A rooftop patio? No. If they did, and they sold their liquor in their bar, I suppose they could take it to the top and drink it if they have a patio up there.
Plus also the beer and wine license is different than a liquor license.
Absolutely. The Cantina's a restaurant.
Yeah, so, okay. We can talk now. Open for
I think
discussion.
it's important to remember with the cantina, it's in an area that's historically been zoned commercial. Currently, it is zone C4 marine commercial. So it's important to, when we do restrictions or look at it, that like we need to make sure we're consistent across the board, because the thing is, if we restrict, let's say, did additional restrictions on here in the potential transitional district with the cantina, if they were just outside of it here, then they would just have the normal restriction, whatever is allowed in the C3 or C4 further up. And that's kind of the challenge. On the beach side, it's already more restrictive. With the alcohol licenses, it has to be a restaurant where like 60% of the gross revenue has to come from food. So like stuff like, I think the only active one I can think of is Caddies, and that we did that financial audit and they meet the restaurant requirement. And if Barefoot Beach Club did reapply, the only alcohol license they would be allowed to would have to be for that restaurant use only. They couldn't do a straight bar without food because that wouldn't be allowed.
So I'd like to ask you to clarify, just to make sure, so when you talk about the no amplified music and the no rooftop, you're not talking about the cantina, but the no amplified music, the complaints are coming from the cantina?
In the past.
In the past.
And
Primarily-
in conjunction with the special events
Yeah.
when they had amplified music a couple of times in front of people's houses.
Right, so typically, they do a Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo, yeah, that was, I mean, of course, that caused a lot of
Right.
complaints.
So once a year? I'm just asking, do they do more? I don't know, because I tend to stick down here in my little hidey hole
Right.
at this end of the beach, so I didn't know if they did more than, if they specifically did more than one special event a year, or if it was just one. And when you talk amplified music, are you talking, so if you have a one-man band, like he's by himself, with his little PV amp, is that considered amplified? Are you talking more towards a band or the single guy playing? Do you know what I mean? I mean, we listen to a lot of music, so I understand music. So when you get a single musician playing up on a porch, which is what I would consider the cantina a porch, to me that is, and you have a single guy up there, can you hear him outside? You can. Is he really loud? Not typically.
Well, that's actually the bar area.
Yeah, right.
I guess what the neighbors were complaining about is when there's something in the parking lot.
Okay. So that would be a special permit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it, if they have a band or music in the parking lot?
Special event permit.
Special event permit, okay. I just want to make sure we all understand, because
Right.
if we're going to ask for
Sure.
recommendation.
And it was going to sound like we're trying to hit cantina. They have a
Yeah.
bar up there, and that's part of what they do.
Right.
All right. It's beyond that, out in the parking lot.
The special activity on the beach, it would be interesting to understand if we could just mark off one section of the beach and change the rules.
Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about, because it is, it's already designated. It's the transitional zone for its unique transition from commercial to residential.
So what kind of special activities do they do out there?
Weddings, parties, well, not so much weddings, but just parties, like special parties. It's not a ton of them. I can only speak specifically to the ones that I've seen. They're just like bachelor parties or that kind of thing. They're just celebrations, birthday parties, but with a lot of noise.
And you get a special...
And they had permission to,
Have
they
the
said
party.
they were giving drinks, but they had drinks out there.
So you have to get a special event permit to have a birthday party on the beach?
For 50 people or more.
Oh, okay.
50 people. That's what I'm trying to avoid, is the 50 people or more in that section.
Mayor, I know I stepped out for a minute, but
I would love some input.
there is a provision in your code currently that talks about amplified music. It's in paragraph 3487, paren 5. It says amplified outdoor sound, music, or live entertainment shall be prohibited between the hours of 9 PM and 7:30 AM on Sunday through Thursday, and 11 PM to 7:30 AM Friday to Saturday, unless approved by the city manager. So the code already provides for amplified sound, amplified music, or live entertainment. So if you wanted to change that, either the time periods or, some other aspect of that, but you've already got a provision that talks about it.
Mr. Trask, can I ask for clarification? What about the part of the ordinance that says that sound can't emit past 50 feet from the source?
So that still comes into play.
Is that any time?
This is an exception. When we look at 3487, that's the enumeration of different possible nuisances, but there's an exception for amplified outdoor music. It is not prohibited. It is allowed. It's just that it has to meet the requirements of 3486. And that's the 50-foot rule. So we do have it addressed. It's just down further in the code. So whether it's amplified music, whether it's live entertainment, or whether it's some other source of sound that is considered to be in violation of 3486, that's what the code provides for. So I don't know if I answered your question, but we do have a provision for it. Okay.
What, did you hear anything troubling with the special events permits in that area? Like restricting special event, which is gathering of 50 people or more?
So for amplified music and entertainment, it has a provision that allows the city manager to approve it. And so if it goes through a special event process, I'm sure that that's where it would be picked up. The city manager would have to approve it.
But do you see a problem with amending it so that that even he couldn't approve an event between 131st and 133rd, the transition zone?
You can amend it however you want to amend it. It's just a question of, will that address the issue that you're trying to address, or will it overcompensate for that one particular issue that you're trying to address? But we could change the code, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
So, commissioners?
I would say it's already in the code. I would just leave it alone. City manager, I'm sure he has good discretion. He's not just going to go and sign anything. So we have to trust that he can make some good decisions.
Well,
You've had
Commissioner, there's nothing innately wrong with the celebrations. They're just birthday parties and such as that.
Yeah.
They're just in close conjunction to where people live. And I understand you live in a tourist resort, absolutely. But I think finding that balance in that specific area would show the residents we care about, their quality of life. And with the ordinance that Mr. Trask brings up, perhaps then what I'm asking for is a sound meter, and ask our sheriffs to enforce this.
I think when we had a discussion one time before on, Mr. Edwards came and spoke about Cinco de Mayo, and we talked to the sheriff, there was some discussion, I don't remember exactly if it was that night, I think it was, or another, but about the noise or the noise meter thing, and that the sheriff's department does have one. It's not always at this, in our area, they have to bring it down or what have you. I would like to personally table this, not table it, but let's bring it back. I'd like to go down and walk 131st to 133rd. I know I have probably thousands of times, but just with the mindset of looking at the homes, looking at the landscape of that neighborhood on the beach side, but also we could get some discussion with the city manager in maybe some discretionary on approving things for that area, and also what could we do to enforce? I think we talked about that before in that we have the laws, maybe they're not being enforced like they should be, and getting some sort of system or some sort of making it a priority that we enforce that, so that if there is a nuisance out on the beach, the residents, it would be enforced for them, stepping it up a little bit.
I'd love for that conversation to start. Sure.
So if you would be okay, and the rest of the commission would also, bring this back to our next workshop, talk a little more, let everyone go out and be mindful of the area that Vice Mayor Taglerini is talking about. Look at that, pay attention to what's there. Limiting, allowing someone to have the rooftop, my only concern would be, or probably not my only concern, but the thing that pops to my mind first is in that area, Barefoot Beach has been before us trying to get a license. They built that building with a restaurant-y area. I have never been there, so I don't really know, but my understanding was that up on the rooftop, they built that with a place to be a restaurant, to one day be able to serve to their clientele. Would that, I mean, I don't want us to appear to be targeting any specific person. I understand if somebody else came in and built a hotel, you don't want another hotel being built there with a rooftop bar, is what I hear. You're not trying to be specific to what's existing. So maybe we could come back and discuss it a little bit more, where everyone's got a little bit more knowledge and time to do some research on what we'll be talking about.
I recommend you just go visit that rooftop.
Okay?
Just see what it looks like up there. And then you'll see what it was, I think what it was designed for. And you'll look down and you see the neighbors right there.
Since that's not something before us, Attorney Trask, is that okay for us to go out and do some of that kind of homework?
It's absolutely okay for
Okay.
you to walk your city and determine what the issues are and what resolution you can come to.
Then I would recommend we all go on a field trip, separately, of course.
Yes. Do
Thank
we
you,
have
Mayor.
any decibel limitation in our code?
No.
No.
Maybe that would be an amendment to consider.
So next workshop, bring this back and talk about it again? Agree?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's great. Thank you. So the next item is Marina, RFP 2024-03, city seawall repairs and replacements.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. What we have before you is just if you need to discuss anything about the RFP that we've put together it's going to be kind of a group effort between the marina, and then Megan will be managing the other seawall projects throughout the city. So if you have any questions for the marina side of it or anything, I'm here to answer them for you.
Since we do not have any public for comment, commissioners?
I have a quick question, Krabby.
Yep.
What is the elevation above base sea level for these seawalls, and is it consistent throughout with all the projects? I did see a measurement here that it was going to be taller than existing, but I didn't get a feel for what that elevation would be. Do you
It will
know?
be existing.
It would be existing?
Yes. We cannot raise it higher because, especially at the marina site, because we would not drain. We'd have to put in drainage, and then the project would be much, much larger. And at the marina, there's really no threat to the building's up high, everything else is docks, things like that are fixed. If we raise, we'd have to move elevations of docking, things like that, so.
Okay, I thought I read somewhere it was going from 53 inches to 80 inches.
No, that wouldn't be.
Yeah.
What did I read?
I think at 150th, it says that the exposed height is 58 to 83
Okay.
inches.
So all the seawalls will be as existing, elevation.
So just to clarify, there's 4 separate locations. The Marina site, Patriot Park, which is just a repair with a sidewalk replacement, 142nd and North Bay Shore, which is a repair, and then 141st, where the stormwater station is, which is a replacement. Both of the replacement seawalls are going to go within the existing footprint. No raising of the seawalls.
Okay.
Additional comments?
One question, what's the quality of the seawall? Is it concrete or PVC or aluminum?
The replacement will be a PVC seawall.
PVC, 1 inch thick?
Yes.
Okay. It's a good product.
Any comment?
I agree with the hiring of and choosing Spieler as the company that's going to do this. Is that correct?
That's correct. They were, through our bid tabulations, they came in as most qualified. They've done several projects here in the city, and they were quite a bit under what the second bid was.
Quite a bit under, I see. Definitely. Okay. I agree with that.
I agree. I think Spieler is obviously, from a financial standpoint, they're the top choice. They also come into our city, they've worked in our city, they know our city. They make a bid based on the experience of the bids we've received from them in the past and the work, that they know what they're going to do. There aren't extra charges that come along with their work. Do you know, if we vote on this at our next commission meeting and approve it, what their timeline is for starting? And what you'd be looking at for a completion?
Well, I'm looking at starting the marina. I want to start it after the boat parade, which would be the second Saturday. It's be right about the second Saturday in December. So I want to start it after that. I don't want to be having everything tore up. They said it would take month and a half at the marina at most. So they could get that done if we could start, say, January. And then January, February, which are slower months for us. We don't have storm threats generally, hopefully that time of year. And it's a slower time. I think we can shuffle boats around, move things around to complete the marina project. So in the meantime, once it gets approved, there's other projects that they can work on. The timeline, though, is to get the marina done all before March.
Before March. And you're already preparing for that?
Correct.
Yeah. Any additional comments?
I think we go with staff recommendation.
I agree.
Just a request on the funding. Are we getting any external funding, grant money on this?
Yes, it was in the budget earlier, there's a $100,000 state appropriation grant. There's going to be a split, 70% marina, 30% towards the public works.
I recall that. Great. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The next item on our agenda is Public Works, ITB 2024-08 Archibald Restroom Project Discussion.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. What you have in front of you is sorry, is that better? Can you hear me better now? I usually don't have that problem because I'm short. I have heels on tonight. So what you have before you is the bids received for the new bathroom at Archibald. So as we all know, I'm sure you all have visited the site. Those restrooms are past their useful life. They are aged, they are Spalding, they are not ADA. They are also not even close to being large enough for the amount of use that they receive over there. So back in 2023, I received approval to proceed with the engineering for the restrooms. Since then, it's obviously gone out to bid. We only received 2 bids. We also required that each contractor submit a pre-qualification packet, because what we don't want to see is, we don't want to have a contractor that is not qualified to build and then be in a situation where 1, we're doing change orders, or 2, we're not getting the quality that we believe we deserve. So with that being said, of the 2 bids that we did receive, only one of those contractors are truly qualified to complete this job, and that is Coors Contracting. They they've completed several jobs locally that are, one, very adequate in building and have withstood the elements. One of those being the Seminole bathrooms that are the park that is next to Home Depot, which, if anybody has seen the plans for the Archibald bathroom, is very similar because I took those plans and modified them to what we needed. Saved us a lot of money, and also we can see a product that works. We know that it's going to hold up, and we know that it's simple yet clean and beachy and beautiful. So before you, I have included on your packet the bid tabulation, which shows Core's construction, and I'm having an issue with my computer, so let me pull that up really quick. The bid tabulation is in there. You will see that Core's, while they were more expensive than the other submittal, I know that they are qualified, and that is my recommendation that we move forward with them. A mistake on my part, but the finance department's not here to back me up. I did not include a 10% contingency in that bid submittal. So what you'll see is that base price plus a 10% contingency. So in the event of an unseen emergency, I don't have to stop the project to come back to you all for a change order. And the finance department, through my whoopsie, was actually very happy with that and said that we should make that almost a standard so that we're not automatically giving a contractor a contingency to utilize that as they see fit.
I think that's fantastic.
So it was a good whoopsie. So I am here to answer any questions you may have.
We have no public comment, so commissioners?
I'm fine with the recommendation.
A question as far as permitting, does it meet FEMA?
Yes, it has been through all the permitting. We have been through full review with the building department.
Okay.
Everything is
Thank you.
permitted.
I don't have anything.
I don't have any questions either. With approval of this at our next meeting, when would construction start?
We are going to immediately hold a pre-construction meeting, and my hope is to start construction October 1. And construction should be no more than 6 or 7 months at most, because once we get the foundation in, which is the pilings, and then we get the built, it's toilets and sinks, so.
And have you already received the trailer potty?
Not yet.
Not
No,
yet?
it is
You'll
ordered.
have that by October 1?
We will have that, and if it's still on hold, then unfortunately, I'm going to have to push back the date. They're on my list of contacts. I just wanted to make sure we were going to be able to proceed.
Nice job, thank you. Thank you. So we will move on to Rubicon software contract approval.
Hello again. So the sanitation department has been a hot topic for a long time, but what most don't know is that we've been running in basically the Stone Age. My sanitation department runs off of a sheet that is a spreadsheet that has the commercial pickups. Every property is listed with what size dumpster they have, the numbers of dumpsters they have with their pickup days. Now, I think Mayor is the only one that's really been on a ride-along, but anybody would be able to see that can be quite taxing, not to mention, depending on the days of the weeks or the time of the year, that changes often. I would say at least once a week, whether it is a extra pickup or it is a bulk item fee or whatever the case may be. I have been searching for a software for a very long time that would work for what we have, simplicity and what we need. And I did a demo with Rubicon. I also know that Treasure Island, who has a very similar sanitation department, is also contracting with them. And the system was awesome. It was very simple. We don't have to purchase any tablets. We can download it on our phone. With that being said, I would prefer that they have tablets so that somebody's not driving down the road and seeing somebody on a phone and then sending or calling one of you or Robin or myself and saying they're on the cell phone again. So this system will have every single property in the city on the route map. It will have what they have as their dumpster size, their pickup days, if there's any extra notes for that day. I can reroute them at any time. I can also see exactly where they are. I don't have GPS on any of the trucks. So anytime I get a phone call that says, oh, the sanitation department's not here yet, they're usually here by 9 a.m., it's 12, where are they? And oftentimes I have to say, well, it's a Monday, or it's a Friday, or there was a rain delay, or whatever the case may be, but truly I don't know where they are until I hang up the phone and call and see where they're at. So this will allow me to log into the back office, see where they are, know that if there was an issue with a dumpster being blocked or concrete or something being in the dumpster that we do not allow, and also being able to send them a message of, hey, there's a broken dumpster, I need it replaced tomorrow. There are a lot of things, including a dash cam. So we get calls saying, they missed my pickup today, or why wasn't my trash picked up? I can easily go into that map, go close to that home, and pull the video footage to see and say, well, they were by your house at 9:35 and your trash can wasn't out at the curb. And they can say, oh, yes, it was. And I'll say, well, I'll send you the video footage. So we will have that information to show, because we don't keep the routes the same every day. It depends on the driver. It depends on what day it is. It depends on a lot of different moving aspects. So when people think that their pickup is every Monday at 10 a.m. and they come by 7:30, they call me immediately and say that they missed them. In all reality, they're like, I missed them. I didn't put it out the night before. So this will help tremendously. It is a 3-year contract. The reason for the annual cost after the initial first year, the $12,444, is due to the dash cams and also the software on the backside of it. But I think that having a system without having dash cams, to me, I think they go hand in hand.
We have no public comment because there's no public. So commissioners?
So this is a whole new cost. We don't.
Yes.
Will this? Is this going to fit? Is this going to work with our budget?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. This will. Sanitation is an enterprise fund. So there are funds, and Andrew did mention earlier the software and the budget.
Yeah,
the
it was
budget
one of
meeting.
the add-on things.
Got it.
Changed.
While I've never had an expense in the subscriptions of this magnitude, I think that it's crucial that we do move forward with
And
this.
currently, they're working off of actual spreadsheets?
Yes. Yes. And we have over 200 dumpsters in the city.
I mean, the GPS alone seems like a necessity
Yes.
nowadays, and I'm all for upgrading.
Thank you.
And when you renew, will we be locked in, like if we want to continue the contract in the future, like in 4 years or 3 years?
For the second and the third year, because this is a 3-year contract, and I can, whenever I come back at the September 11th meeting for final approval, I can ask that question if there will be, on the 4th year, if that is going to increase. But as of right now, this is only a 3-year contract.
Sounds like a great idea. Thank you.
Seems like a significant expense each year. $12,000-$13,000 for video, for the, I mean, why is it so much each year? Once you have the hardware and you have the software, it's like a subscription fee.
It is.
That's
And also it's the dash cams, because it's like a
but-
rental fee for the dash cams.
It just seems very significant. It's like, I don't know, you've done the homework as far as looking for software. It just seems like it's very significant cost for a subscription. That's all. I mean, the hardware I get, and the tablets and all that, the software and the upfront fee, it's just, I'm having heartburn over $12,000. How many trucks do you have?
5.
Yeah.
It's also licensing as well. So it's not like a one-time paying fee. When you have subscriptions and rental of equipment, there is unfortunately an annual cost, because we can't really buy a system out like this and expect for it to be kept up to date, where they will update it as much as it's needed to be updated.
So when a dash cam goes bad, they replace it?
Correct.
For free? I mean, under the
Yes, it is a rental.
subscription fee?
Yes.
I don't know, I have to give it more thought.
Okay.
Thanks.
Having ridden with sanitation and understand, I feel like I sit in a unique position.
You do.
Because I have ridden with sanitation on 2 different rides, 2 different vehicles, and I can understand the pains they have with the community in trying to, well, not trying, in doing a great job. And just like Megan said, they didn't get my trash. Well, your trash wasn't out. Or they didn't get my trash today, and then they realized that they're calling Megan on Thursday and their trash pickup was on Wednesday. Or their trash pickup is on Thursday and they're calling her on Wednesday. They didn't get my trash. Well, it's not your trash day. When I rode with sanitation, one of the things that I saw was overflowing dumpsters. This would be caught on the dash cams.
Yes.
Vehicles parked in front of the dumpsters where it was, I mean, admittedly, if I was the sanitation worker, I probably would have just driven, but they don't, because if a car is parked in the way of the dumpster and they have to make extra effort to get the dumpster out of where it is, and I witnessed this on more than one location, first off, they take a picture of it with their phone because they send it to Megan to charge the person, for whoever the entity is, gets charged for that being that way. But then they go over and they finagle the dumpster out, because if they leave it and don't go to the extra effort to get it out, the customer is not going to stop throwing garbage in it. And so where it's already overflowing, they're going to keep overflowing it. So they go that extra mile. So, you know, when you think they don't, they go that extra mile to go ahead and get it out, but they have to stop and take a picture and do things, send that to Megan. So with something like this, they're going to pull up. There's not going to be the need to stop and take the picture. It's going to be on the video feed. And, I mean, I read the contract and read through and did a little online research as to what was out there, what it really got. I see a need in progress moving forward having this. So, good job.
Thank you.
Anything further? City Attorney, do you have anything for us? City Clerk?
Do you mean further with this topic or further in general?
Anything further in general now?
If there's no more on this topic, I do have one thing, and I know it's been a long night, Commissioners, I'll make this quick, but I would like to recognize, I'd like to recognize some of our residents who have gone the extra mile to save some of our dunes as a result of the, hurricane of 2023 that washed out approximately 30-plus feet of our sand dunes in front of beach accesses and homes. Because of not getting permission from all the neighbors, FEMA wouldn't restore their dunes and also our paths. So Bob Bello and Joan Claben and their spouses and I think one other neighbor, they got together and they got 600, they requested 2,000 sea oats, but they got 650, and they planted them. And some of these, you can see the little sprouts, and they also fixed, I don't know if you're familiar with the 133rd access, coming from the bridge. It had started, it went straight in 1997 when I moved here. And over the years, it's shifted to the right, basically in front of residents' houses, but also through sand dunes. So with those, they got approval from the city, they got COs from dune restoration. They did all this work, signage, and there's the COs that they planted. Anyway, I just wanted to recognize them for that. The cost of the posts and the rope and all that stuff. So Bob Bello and Joan Claben spearheaded that and did almost all the work themselves. So kudos to them.
Absolutely. Thank you. If no one has anything further, it is 8:29. We are adjourned.